Simple everyday routines can affect the air we breathe. By removing dirty air, you breathe clean air at all times, while germs and allergens are inhibited, ensuring healthy and clean air everywhere. Panasonic is able to complete your home with quality air solutions. Panasonic.
Hello, good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the show.
Good evening. Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening.
To our viewers, yes, welcome to yet another edition of HPROP Malaysia's Fireside Chat. Tonight, we have a very interesting lineup for viewers. You're in for a real treat because we're getting behind the scene of managing high-end strata property, not just homes, but high-end strata property. Before I go on to introduce our guest for the day, maybe, let's think about, the times that we are in right now. It is so easy to be an armchair critic, right? Especially, with social media being what it is today. We hear a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise out there. But if we were to think of it in the context of communal living, for instance, right? Unconstructive criticism can escalate into issues that are ugly. And it's so easy for that to happen, right? And of course, against the backdrop would be the fact that challenges are abundant when it comes to the management of property. And, we are not just talking about high-end property, but property types all over. I mean, the mid-range, even the affordably priced ones, and of course the high-end property, right? Hence, it is no wonder that there are actually not many brave souls out there who would, take on the job of chairing management corporations. So well done, gentlemen. I mean, it is great that, you all are actually contributing to this cause, which is so important because can you just imagine Malaysia with properties that are not well managed? How are we going to look in the eyes of the international property investors, for instance? It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be really, really horrific, right? And it's going to be very, very bad for our country. So yeah, okay. In that context, yes, that is why HPROP Malaysia, we are so passionate about this subject, about the importance on stressing on why we as in Malaysia, we need to have homes that are well managed, properties that are well managed, and properties that are sustainable. Oh, before I go on to introduce in a little bit more detail our speakers, let me just take this opportunity to quickly thank our partners first, right? Our partner, Nippon Paint Malaysia, and our supporting sponsors, Panasonic Malaysia, Matrix Concept, and Keep Alive. These are companies that and have made it possible for us to have the discussion this evening. Thank you very much. And to all our viewers, we appreciate your tuning in to share the thoughts of our speakers today. And for that, you stand a chance to win the OMG Strata 2.0 Owner's Manual and Guidebook, worth $29.90 each. These are sponsored by HPROP Malaysia. And on top of that, we are also giving away 2 home inspection vouchers worth 5,000 ringgit each. And these are sponsored by Architect Center. So all you have to do, viewers, is to submit questions. And stay on till the end of the talk. And we will be announcing the winners who will be picked at random at the end of the show. The names will be pinned on our Facebook comments section. Yeah. Okay. Right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let's proceed to introduce our speakers. First off, we have Dato Nabhesh Kana. Dato is the chairman of Solaris Tutamas Management Corporation. Dato is a company director and no stranger to the corporate sector. And among the many senior management roles that Dato has played was that as the CEO of a Malaysian public listed company. He has been involved in the restructuring of companies, both operationally as well as financially. And he has served many years in the Management Corporation Committee of MK, which is Mont Kiara Meridian. And now Dato is chairman of Solaris Tutamas Management Corporation. Welcome, Dato. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next we have Katie, Mr. Khaw, Katie. Katie is the past chairman of Sri Penaga Condominium Management Corporation. He actually has served on as a council member or a committee member on a number of management bodies, management corporations since the year 2002. That's a long time ago, JT. Only 18 years.
A long time ago,
yes, okay. And JT is currently chairman of Menara UOA Bangsa, MC, and also, of Bangsa Management Corporation as well. He's also a past chairman of One Menarong Management Corporation, and as well as Sri Penaga MC, right, JD?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, the list goes on and on. Yeah, JD by profession is a former legal practitioner and a corporate legal advisor who retired in the year 2002 after 3 decades in that field. Yeah, welcome, JD.
Thank you.
Last but not least, we have Mr. Kenneth Khoo. Kenneth is the chairman of the mansions at the Park City Heights joint management body. Well, this very high-end, low-rise strata property actually is located in this Park City. Kenneth has lived in the mansions for 5 years now, right, Kenneth?
Yes.
And Kenneth has been involved in various group activities in the committee towards ensuring the safety and the quality upkeep of this 20-acre project, right? And currently you are the JMB chairman and your 5 committee members. On the corporate front, Kenneth provides business support systems for the telecommunication industry, and for over 25 years, Kenneth has been helping mobile telecommunication operators set up billing systems as well as, to support and expand their businesses. So this chairmanship is quite different, right? You're looking after a lot of people, a lot of properties, and a lot of plans, right, Kenneth? Yeah. Okay. Let's get on with the subject matter of the day. Okay. Gentlemen, maybe I'll just throw an open question. Before you became the chairman, of MC, what were your thoughts? Is it anything close to what you imagine it to be? Maybe we started with Dato.
Well, Normally, what would happen is that you enter a committee. You have been there for a couple of years. You have understood the ropes. You have understood what is the legal aspect of it. What is the Strata Management Act, and then you normally go into the chairmanship. When I was pushed into building chairmanship, it was just a brand new building. And it was, I think, first or second year where I was already the vice chairman, and the chairman was unfortunately in Singapore all the time, so I was handling the affairs. And that gave me a good insight into how you need to run a high-end condominium and maintain the value, because as owner of the property, and I think all of us who are staying in various properties, and if we are staying in that property and managing it, the critical aspect of everything that we do is to maintain the value of the property, because every investor who is there, every person who is staying there, not only from the point of living, that it makes a comfortable place for everyone, well maintained, but at the end of the day, you don't want to see a property depreciate in value. I mean, like Fungi, you said just earlier, you don't want to see properties which are dilapidated across the whole of Malaysia. So it really becomes a lot more responsible on the committee as such, to make sure that we all work together to build that value. And that was what was always in my mind.
Right. So you actually went in with your eyes open. You knew exactly what was expected of you in terms of your contribution to the committee.
Yes. I was quite clear that we needed to do a lot of work. And as normally what happens in the first 2 years and 3 years is that we all end up in arms with the developers, because everyone wants a lot of things. And and slowly you settle down and you get everything done. And I'm happy to say till today it's a well-maintained building.
Yeah, good to know that. JD, what about yourself? Back in the year 2002, when you first, got into it, did it surprise you?
When I first got into this, I actually went in because I think the developer found nobody else wanted the job. So, so they came around to a few of us purchasers and they said, look, why don't you just form the first committee? And then after that, if you don't like it, you can step down. So we were persuaded and we came on, and then we found it was quite challenging, especially when you have to go against the developer who invited you on in the first place. But gradually you get the feel of it. And then you find that you carry on because nobody else wants the job. Quite frankly, it's because nobody else wants the job. And it really is very hard to get people to come on committees like this, because I've probably heard it said many times, it's a very thankless job. You do something right, nobody says anything. You do slightest thing wrong, it becomes an uproar. So, but you learn from your mistakes, you learn from the errors, and gradually you get to enjoy it. But I like to step back whenever I find, once the committee gets the hang of it, I try to, move out if I can, if at all possible, and then let them get on with the job, and then maybe come back in when there's a controversy. But other than that, they should be allowed to get on with it.
Yeah. JD, interesting, this bit about controversy. Just curious, right? The fact that you're a legal expert, does it make it any easier? When you speak, maybe people are a little bit more guarded, right? I don't know.
No. I think what it makes it easier in the sense that you can read the law and you can try and understand it, and you try and interpret it to people as simply as possible. The act is not very easy to understand, but you try and simplify it as much as possible, and try and encourage more people to read and understand it. And then I think it's basically a question of education. That's all.
Before we proceed with that, maybe just Kenneth yourself, what you do, as your profession, telecommunications providing services is very different, right? Because like in the case of the mentions, you were just sharing with us earlier before we went live, because you have such a lovely park or jungle, whatever you call it, you have a lot of uninvited guests monkeys and so on and so forth, So how does that augur for you as the role of a chairman of a very high-end property with that kind of problems?
I joined the committee for 1 year, then I become the chairman. And because of the COVID, now it's run into the second year already, because we are going to just about to hold the AGM when the MCO come into play. So I will be in the chairmanship for 2 years already from the committee. And during the committee time, during as a committee member, I saw that they definitely need to have a mix of strong committee members on the committee to get things going, and they need to work together. And also, you need probably, we are all very hands-on. We're engineers, so we think very differently. We're very hands-on and very practical in what we do. And it's always the argument like, no offense to Chay here, you have 3 lawyers sitting on the other side, and you got 2 technical and engineers on this side trying to argue how the thing should be done. And then the other side arguing that we should not touch it, otherwise we'll offend someone, right? Then it's a bit difficult, right? How do we strike that balance? So for me to come on board, being a very from a very engineering and technical background, is that we try to be practical and try to resolve things. And on the other side, we realize that we need to beef up soft skills in trying to understand and make sure everybody understand that we're doing this for the entire property and not just for their unit only. Yeah. So we got to balance that, and there's and various people do take various view, and we just got to balance it and make sure they do understand. And there's one thing which is, I think, very difficult for community to do, is that we cannot please everyone. Yeah. We will have to offend someone to get some things done, what we feel right from the committee perspective, and make sure that it is a consensus decision within the committee that we do that particular item. Then I think that's a very difficult thing to do. In high-end property, because everybody thinks that they're right.
Any property for that matter, doesn't matter, every property owner, and you don't get paid for that, right?
Exactly. And you do. I was very surprised as a chairman that there's some dispute between the landlord and the tenants being moving out, and some issue with the owners calling us saying that, I want you to do this and this and this. Are you aware that we are paying you the maintenance fee and blah blah blah? But I said, we are JMD, we're not being paid anything, okay? But you have to balance, because obviously you're serving a range of people with different education, different background, and different thought process. And obviously you also got to take care of the people that are coming from non-strata title properties into strata title properties and didn't know what to expect of it.
Yeah, sure. Talking about this money thing, it's always problematic, right? It doesn't really matter how much, when it comes to like money, it's a little bit dicey. So if we were to look at the duties and the responsibilities of a chairman, or rather the committee, is it clearly defined under the Strata Management Act 2013? Maybe JT can help us with this. Is it defined in case that there's any dispute, or before one party kills the other party, quote unquote kill? Is it clearly defined?
Unfortunately, it isn't. I think that's one of the drawbacks of the current Strata Management Act. It really doesn't define the duties and responsibilities of committee members, and that is one of the drawbacks. And people come on and they really don't know what they're supposed to do. Many of them, you probably will find, Dato, Kenneth, many of them who come on may have an agenda, and to deal with this agenda is part and parcel of what. Of course, you have a few of them who come on and really want to work in the best interest of the whole community. But more often than not, some of them do have an agenda, and you have to then modify or deal with it with the whole community. So I think one of the drawbacks of the Strata Management Act is that it does not define what the duties and responsibilities of the management committee and individual committee members are. Unlike, say, in the Companies Act, where you have 14 sections telling you as a company director what you cannot do, the standard of care you must exercise, all these kinds of things. But in a committee, in the Strata Management, it doesn't say that. I presume they didn't do it because what they realize is that it's laymen serving and voluntary members serving. So you really don't want to discourage people at all. But I think you still need to put some minimum standards in. And that's why in some, most of all the committees that I serve in, I make sure that there's a code of conduct put in there so that at least people know what their duties and responsibilities are. It's basically just a simple code of conduct, which just states about 10 different things that you just need to be aware of as you serve on this committee.
Yeah. On the flip side, JD, and this point about the roles and responsibilities not being clearly defined under the Act, what about, in case there's any legal issues, committee members are actually not protected, right? Or are they protected?
Well, they represent the whole management corporation. So obviously, if something goes wrong, I don't think there will be personal liability unless you really went out on a limb and did something on your own with totally no authority. As long as you have approval from the management committee to do what you've done, then I think basically you're covered. Even though it may be a bad decision, I think as long as it was a properly considered decision and maybe you went the wrong way, I think you'll be covered. As long as make sure you have that minute of the meeting that says that you're authorized to do it. That's the most important thing.
Right.
The management committee is covered with the insurance of personal indemnity. You have got insurance for all the actions that you do. So to that extent, I think the committees are all covered. So they need not be so afraid that they would be ending up with liabilities if they took any decision. Otherwise, it would just be impossible to work because we're all so afraid to do anything which can go wrong in the end, and people with few thousand people coming after you, it becomes a challenge.
I know. That as we are chatting, there are actually questions coming in. So if there are questions that are very relevant to what we are talking about at that point, I think it will be a good idea for me to bring it in. Yeah? There's actually one question here about property managers working with divided committee members. Yeah. Yes, Kenneth, you're smiling and you're nodding. Maybe you have something to share. Yeah, what happens if the committee members don't agree? And of course, the disagreement, the dispute extends beyond that to the property manager. It's going to be fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely will be fun because you're going to face this, especially with new development just going after CF, when people start to move in. You have a committee that is going in, and you have a property management that has been assigned by probably the developer to try and run the place. And then the committee does not agree to everything that the management property does, right? Then you have a head-on conflict. And with this conflict, then you become very difficult to get things moving, right? Things moving until somebody decided to say, get rid of the property management, assign somebody else that they like and they think they can work with, and try and work with them. So the JMB and the property management is pretty important that they must get on and try to work together. If not, it'll be very difficult because I don't know from Dr. Kana and Chay that you have experienced this, that when you have all these monthly meetings with the property management, you always run till 11, 12 o'clock at night. And I've even seen some run till 1 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. Because there's so many things that cannot be decided, number one. Number two, cannot be agreed upon. Yeah. And it debates on an hour on one subject, and there's lineup of maybe 10, 15 subjects to discuss during that 1 month meeting, right? And you'll never end. So I think it's really important. I think especially, I sometimes I'm still not very sure how the property developer or the developer themselves, owner, assign the management company to the particular building that they are about to release for residents to live in. I think that first year of that is really, really important, because that 1 year you have to fight against all the warranties from the developer, number one. Number two, you have to, all the new residents coming in, some with strata title experience, some has not, will come to the office to ask for all kinds of things. And that first 2 years is probably the major challenge. If you get that right, I think the rest will run smoothly. But from what I've heard in the market right now is that there's still quite a challenge to try and get the first committee to work with the property management in a newly launched property to make it move smoothly. That is my experience of what I've heard and seen from many strata title properties during the handover from the developers.
Yeah. Dato and JD, do you agree? I mean, from your feedback, does that seem to be the problem? Or is it, more specific cases that we are talking about?
I mean, as I said, as what Kenneth has also mentioned, the first years are quite tough. It's not easy. Why are they not easy? I think primarily because of the expectations of people. Can you imagine you have paid for a 2 million property and you go in and you find there's a small crack or there's a small, the developer said they gave me a photograph which showed it had a lovely tree here, and instead of that there's a bush here. I mean, I have gone through this a couple of times already, so I know those kinds of, these are basically expectation management. And I don't think that the developers really manage those expectations in terms of the marketing versus the project delivery. The marketing people, when they sell the unit 5 years back, is those lovely pictures with greenery around. And by the time your building is up, you only find there are another 10 buildings around you. So the whole has changed. The expectation has changed. And when you land up in your house and you find out, I was told that I will be getting this and I didn't get that. It was so, they show me the big size, this is small size. All that ultimately ends up with the JMB. Right? Now you are there, go and fight with the developer and bring back everything what they promised. Yeah, so that's, I think it's very common in almost every property that the first couple of years you have to really be patient. And I think a lot of the legal aspect also comes in to say what was promised was not exactly what was in the blueprint, because sometimes those asterisks are all there to say this will be nearly this size or this will be nearly the closest available to this color or something like that. And people don't understand that. So they have a higher expectation, especially with high-end property, because it's a lot of money you pay for. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not uncommon in the first couple of years. But as Kenneth said, yeah, once people start to settle down, and then they realize, and my experience with many developers over here has been that once you bring up the genuine defects to them, once you bring up genuine issues to them, they'll actually redone a few things to make sure it falls in line and it conforms. I mean, I can give just a small incident where we had. In Meridian, we are right next to the highway. And we have got a cabana, which is just next to the Shell petrol pump on Jalan Duta. So when you start the cars after the petrol pump or paying the toll, you generally rev up, and that creates a lot of sound. So the people just at that point are always going to be, having a problem. And we have a few units of cabana over there next to the swimming pool. So this was brought up to the developer, and they were kind enough to look into it seriously. And we have put an entire soundproofing fence around the whole area so that they don't get disturbed so much. So yeah, they do look at it.
Yep. And this is done at the cost of the developer, right?
Yes. Initially, I think everywhere it goes to the developer anyways.
Right. So does that mean, gentlemen, do you agree with me that, the kind of developer that you deal with is very important? I mean, whether or not they're responsive, whether they're responsible, whether they're caring, that's quite crucial, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's kind of like difficult, right? How do you define defects versus upgrading, in the early lifespan of a project, right? You have a good developer who intends to be around for a long time, then things can be sorted out rather relatively easier. Yeah. What about JD? From your end, what are your comments?
Oh, sorry. We've got a bit diverted. I think the
Yeah.
question went back to what do you do with a divided committee if you're a property
Correct.
manager?
Oh, yeah.
I think
Yes.
the most important thing that he has to do is to be very professional, because I've seen property developers who try to, property managers, unfortunately, some building managers like to try and curry favor with certain committee members. That's a very dangerous thing to do. I've even experienced one where the building manager actually wanted to try to change the committee. He went to that extent. So,
Wow.
yes. He took part. He was campaigning during the elections. So
Wow.
those kinds of things do happen. But what happens when you do start taking sides like that is you compromise your position, and then you will find that certain committee members will never listen to you. So I think the most important thing that the property manager can do is be totally professional. And if he's pushed to do something that he feels is not right, then ultimately he should report back to his head office, and if necessary, he should resign. Because don't ever allow yourself as a property manager to have your reputation tarnished by going down a route that you think is not correct.
Yep.
Just one response to Kenneth when he said that he's having meetings until 2 a.m. and 12 and all that. Yes, sometimes it does happen, but at least I can say in Sulai Zutamas, with the help of the managing agent, what we do is we don't go generally beyond 2 to 2.5 hours. So we spend a lot of time in the subcommittees, Kenneth, if that can help you. You spend a lot of time in subcommittees, make sure that the papers, etc., are presented in a subcommittee where you have looked at it and taken major decisions only for endorsement at the upper level. Otherwise, 12 is early. You can wait in the morning.
If I might comment, Kenneth, I've had a few engineers on my committee and they are so detailed, it's unbelievable. They look at every single thing. I mean, engineers are wonderful committee members because they make sure the whole place works. But unfortunately, they are so detailed, and that's probably why you all are overworking, quite frankly. You are definitely overworking. So maybe, as Dato says, push it to subcommittee, let them do all the groundwork, come back with a recommendation, and you guys just say yes or no.
True. I think there's one point I thought of while listening to you guys talking is really important is when you have a JMB working with property management and the developer, I think what is important is these three parties must be seen as one and working together, because there are many instances where the JMB and the property developer or JMB on their own are thinking that we got to fight against the developers, which is the wrong thing to do.
Absolutely.
The wrong thing, because you will never get anything done. You just need to table whatever issues are sensibly, bring all the evidence accumulated, whatever you have, bring it to the developer, and make sure that they listen to you and let them get a response back to you between you and the property management and the developers. Because I've seen that, especially in newly property that's ready to move in, when new JMB comes on board and property management comes on board, it thinks that, like Chay just say, we pay a few $1 million for this property, right? We got our warranty. We got to make sure everything is going to be paid for by the developer, whatever it takes, and we got to fight them all the way to make sure that it's all done. You won't get it done. Okay, you work that way, you will not get it done. Okay, that's what I've learned and what I've experienced.
Kenneth, that's very interesting. Maybe if I can have your comments, gentlemen, on the fact that increasingly there are these very big and established developers who actually go on to form their property management arm. So they actually do it, and they're very involved. And the whole idea is that whatever feedback that they get, hopefully, it is plowed back into the planning and the design of the future properties, so that, whatever products that they're going to roll out, in the near future will be buildings that are easy to manage, and good for quality management. Do you think that would work in the long end, for property developers to actually get involved in property management? Your experience?
Well, I mean, if I can take that first. Personally, I have seen in Monkera, which has been majorly developed by one particular developer. I don't want to take the names, but yes, everyone knows who has developed the majority of Monkera. The experience, what we have seen is that since buildings are built over a period of time, so you had one building, say the first building which came up in that area was like 25 or 30 years back, right? Yeah. The requirements of people at that point of time, the availability of resources or the styles, or you can call it, the necessities of those times were different. Vis-a-vis when you build a Solaris Dutamas 2 today, which is probably going to come up something 5 years down the line, you plan it for it today. So you have got a different perspective. Now, if a property developer has a property management arm and they are integrally involved in the management, they keep getting the feedback to keep upgrading and changing those styles, those patterns, those requirements, and of course, the expectations of people to understand what is really the requirement. I mean, the people who came into that building 30 years back were all youngsters probably. Today they're getting old. So their requirements have drastically changed to the people who come 30 years down the line in a modern building who are youngsters again. So this is it's a really interesting thing to manage those things, and the developer having a property management to keep getting this feedback, to keep improving. I think it's a wonderful idea and they should do it.
Right. Yeah, for instance, that you've made a very interesting point. Let's talk about, issues that are very, very basic, fungal peeling issues, even leakages. Over time, I think there can be a lot of improvement, right, in terms of the materials that you use, the kind of paint and the kind of methods, right? Yeah, because over time, things would have improved, right? People
Absolutely.
would have learned.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you see that happening in Monkera?
Of course, a lot. Because, I'm seeing buildings which are being repainted after this normal standard of 10 to 12 years. But if you ask me, many of them probably did not even require painting. But to maintain the stature of the building and to maintain the facade of the building, people will go and do it. Now, if the developer is there from the beginning, it is not only a serious developer with a property management agent, it's their esteem also which has to be there in the market, so they have to keep their name alive. They don't want to just fly by night operator, build a building and run away. So if they are involved and building continuous rapport with all the clients, it goes a long way to understand everything.
Right. And of course, we are talking about a value creation, right? Because when people, drive past the building, how the building looks like, it's going to make an impression on them. And that could actually help them to decide whether or not they're going to buy from this developer the next time round, right? Yeah.
Not only buy, but also rent. You see, a lot of people who drive by, if the building is not looking good, believe me, even if the agent says it's all very good and nice, probably will not enter to rent the place. And of course, depending on your convenience, you would like to rent, sometimes just not buy. So it's all about having a proper maintenance done.
Right. JD, what about, from your perspective, do you share the view that, it actually makes sense for a developer, not a fly-by-night one, of course, to have a property management arm?
Totally agreed, yes. Because that's the only way they're going to get the feedback on what works and what doesn't work. Because I'm sure many developers have put up properties that are problematic. And most of it comes from either pipes or mostly pipes. Water pipes, cold water pipes are the main cause of the problem. So because they have a property management arm, they will know the problems that they face, and the next time around they'll improve on it. So whether it's the lobbies, whether it's the lighting, whether it's the electrics, whether it's the swimming pool, some people make major mistakes with swimming pools. All this they can take into account and produce a much better property and much easier and cheaper to manage property as well.
Yeah, even down to very basic, problems like roof or wall, leakages, right? I mean, the water seepage, right? That's really irritating, right?
Terrible, terrible. That's the worst problem I think most residents have to face.
Yeah. Kenneth, do you share the view that it makes sense for a developer to have a property management arm?
My view may be slightly different because I'm looking obviously from the point of how do you run a project and make it very successful from beginning to end. Yeah, from an engineering perspective. If a property developer owns if a developer owns a property management company, that management company need to be sitting right in the middle between the residents, JMB, and the developer. They need to be very neutral. We are all thinking in line that the property developer having a property management arm should not be siding either way, whether there's warranty defects or defects that is genuine, that they can feed back to the developer, that the developer can improve that defect in their new development. I don't believe this flow of thought is practically going through in the Malaysian way, where property or developers owning property management, and then management companies seeing the defect in existing property, feeding back to the developer to improvement. I have the view that the property developer, when they develop a new property, they are taking very much the view of the architect, of what the architect do, and whether it's sensible or not. Okay. And secondly, and I think in many property in Malaysia that I've seen, because I have lived overseas for a very long period of time and see how some of the properties are being done. When property developers develop property, they may have a very well laid out design, documentation, everything. But the problem is that nobody actually manages and checks on those things that is being done properly. That is why majority of the new condos that you get always have pipe or smell issues in Malaysia. And it's because either the joints are not done properly, or I checked this, they've not even do a sample. For example, let's say you take a condo that is a 20-story high and you have all your layout design. There's no such concept as that we have appointed all these subcontractors to do the piping, electrical wiring, everything. Can they build one unit out to show that it is done properly so that they can repeat it across 20 units? It's just like they will just start work and then all of them go in and do their do their own things, and then it won't. I give you a classic example of this happening in the mobile world, in mobile telephony, which we all use mobile, right? For example, we're talking about 5G, right? Everybody knows about 4G, talking about 5G, right? Let's say you award a 5G for the entire Malaysia with a operator, could it be Maxis, DG, or whoever, to a 5G supplier and come in, and you tell the 5G supplier, I want all these 5Gs to be up and running in 7 months. Yeah, the vendor will probably say, yes, we can do it. They are going to send 200 people down here to try and do a massive deployment of 5G throughout Malaysia in the next 7 months. But we all know very well, these 200 engineers will be coming from all walks of life and from everywhere. It could be from anywhere in the world that they think they have experience, but they've never worked together. It's going to be ended up when they first start. I can guarantee you, when you're in Penang, you cannot call KL. When you're in KL, you cannot call Johor. Because with 200 people, it's going to all be doing their own things as they think they seem fit to do. Right? So in the property development, you have the same issue. You have piping, you have electrical, you have a roofing, you have insulation, you have all kinds of things, yeah. And it may all be planned out detail, the drawings, everything. But I don't think some of these are being followed through carefully, because I've taken blueprints from developers when there is a fault somewhere to follow that blueprint. It doesn't follow because the guy who installed it maybe doesn't know how to read the blueprint.
Right. Yeah.
Just from
Yeah.
A to B, right? Whatever
Yeah.
is appropriate.
Yeah. Hence, your meeting goes on to 2 a.m.
Now you can know why.
Now I understand a little bit better. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is like, wow, big time. You know, that point that you made, Kenneth, about, architects having a lot of say when it comes to the design of new buildings. That is something that we as in the Age Prop Malaysia can resonate with. Hence, one of the things that we do, when we go down to the ground for the site visits for the judging of our best managed and sustainable property awards, one of the things that we asked of the property manager, if the property manager is part of a developer, we will ask him, how loud is your voice in the planning? How many percent? Your CEOs, how much weight, does it, do your words carry? I think that's very important. Because we also feel that, a responsible developer, they will have to take this feedback. Otherwise, we will not move forward. So absolutely agree. So hence, we have always been promoting, please don't go for the bells and whistles. Don't go for, the superlatives, the most iconic, the biggest, the most number of swimming pools, golf course or whatever, you have like putting green, whatever, everything. It's not going to be easy to manage, right? Because we're talking about sustainable building and sustainable community living. That actually brings me to this subject about sustainable community living. What is the biggest challenge, in the respective properties that you are involved in? Is it cost? Is it managing people? Is it communication, or is it all of the above? Maybe anyone to start off with. How do you create that sense of of sustainable living?
Okay, let me make a start, and then let Dato and Chay add on to this.
Sure.
I think one of the things that we look at as a committee is number one, it has to be practicality. Practicality must come first, yeah. Practicality and maintenance, yeah. And when developers deliver things to us over the years, we realize that some things is not as practical. So we have to bear, if we can afford, bear that cost to change it, so that it can be maintained it can be easily maintained over the years to come. Do some very simple analogy. Yeah, street lighting that needs to be lit up every night, and when wiring goes wrong, when you replace the wiring, you should go for the best outdoor wiring rather than compromise and go for something cheap. If something that can last for 10 years, why not if you pay a bit more, and knowing that it's going to be used every night to light all the common areas in the next coming 10 years, than to do something cheaper and have to fix problem every other year. Some simple analogy like that, yeah. So it had to be a practical one. Area that are commonly used by a lot of people need to be maintained properly with quality product so that it lasts. And even simple things like painting the lamppost. Why should you choose a cheap paint and in 1 year's time you all be faded and you start again and you're wasting labor? Yeah.
Right. Even painting of car parks, for instance, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. To me, the issue of sustainability is very important, and the practicality of how it can be maintained is key. Otherwise, you will not be able to upkeep the place because the cost is always going up. It's running against your service charge.
And also the application of technology, right? I mean, now it is so important.
Yes, correct, correct. If you can, for example, we see that at the I don't know, but I believe that a lot of the older condo will all face this issue. We're all using wire connections between the guardhouse or intercoms into the building for all the units, right? And sooner or later, you'll know that to try and track all this wiring to change for this intercom is a nightmare. And if you can change all these to mobile facilities, then you have a big improvement. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. Dato, you wanted to say something earlier.
No, see, sustainability is always on the top of the agenda. I think for every building. I think I fully agree with Kenneth. The concept cannot be that you waste your resources, right? I mean, that's what we are talking about. Sustainability. It's for the benefit of for yourselves, and you make sure that you do everything right, that you don't have to do it twice. So, like you said, paint the lamppost in a way that it should not be painted again for next 10 years. But I think that's where the committee plays a big role. The committee I have seen sometimes we have members in committees who say, oh, why do we need to spend so much? There are cheaper options available. Why are we wasting money? But what they don't realize perhaps is it's not wasting money in the first round, it's wasting money in the second round, which becomes, and in all probability, they may not be there, So as far as they are concerned, we saved a lot of money. This concept of saving of money, I think, is also a very important point for management committees and JMBs. You see, a lot of committees feel that we must save money when we are working. I personally am of the opinion that we have been given money to maintain the place and not save everybody's money. So as long as you are doing the right job, not saving money, I mean, if people wanted to save money, they can put it in their own account. So they don't have to give it to you. They're giving you money for a purpose. Please maintain that properly. Don't waste it. That is what I think Kenneth said. You're wasting money when you want to do it twice. So that's not sustainable.
Because let's say you do something expensive and lasts for 10 years. You do something cheap, it lasts for, let's say, 3 years. You have to realize that in 3 years' time when you do it again, it's going to be double the cost of what you did 3 years ago. So you're not actually saving money if you're trying to do it cheap way. You're actually increasing your cost going forward in the next 3 years. Because in 3 years' time when you do it, it'll be more expensive than what you paid for 3 years ago.
I mean, on the cost point of view, I think when we do it, we always look at if there's going to be a payback. We are not just spending money just for spending money. If there is going to be a payback for, like you said, to change all the wires, how long is it? What's the improvement? Everything has always got some saving potential somewhere. It helps in some way. If you want to change the entire wiring of the whole building, at the end of the day, old wires gone, new wires come, you end up saving electricity. Believe me, you will be doing that. Sometimes it will be very fast, sometimes it will be very slow. Like many old buildings, when you enter, you still find the old tube lights, the T5s are all still operating. And the first thing normally I tell them is, why are they still there today? No building should have T5. Everyone should have moved to LEDs. There's no question of not doing that. Oh, there's a lot of expense, it's like 40 ringgit per tube and all that. Yeah. But you save that money in the second year. Believe me, that's how it works. And the electricity bill will be constant. So you have to look at from those views for sustainability and move forward.
Right. Penny wise, pound foolish kind of decision, right? Yeah. JT, you have something to add? Yeah.
No, now I know why Solaris, Dutamas, and the Mansions are doing so well. They have such sensible people running them.
Thank you for that.
Because the idea of the maintenance fund is to maintain the property. Yep. So I think probably the greatest challenge is to what standard. That's the only difference of opinion. Some people have to what standard do you want to maintain your property? But obviously it's to the best that you can possibly afford. So the idea of the maintenance fund is not to keep money in the bank, not to make money from the money. The idea is to maintain the property so that the capital values appreciate, the rental values go up, and everybody is happy. I think that's the main purpose of the maintenance fund and the sinking fund. So that should be the purpose, as Dato and Kenneth have both said. Yes, maintain the property to the best that you can afford.
Yeah. But again, of course, definition, the best, it varies, right, from person A to person B. Hence,
Well, we
sometimes
go
we
by
have this.
HPOP standard. We go by HPOP standard, Shungi.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's where the engineer comes in to decide what is best.
Yeah. Then before then, you have to decide who is the best engineer to talk.
Correct.
Let's talk about something a little bit more topical. COVID and the partial lockdown that we have just experienced. And never before had we imagined that there was going to be a lockdown that what we have gone through, right? Maybe if you gentlemen can just share with me what were the takeaways from your respective buildings. As a chairman, right? What were things that went wrong, that could have gone wrong, and of course, the takeaway, the lessons learned moving forward, how we can improve. Anyone to start off with?
JD can start.
JD, yes. You can't always be the last, Yeah, let's reverse the numbering now. Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge was informing people of what's happening and what they can expect. I mean, nobody in a condo ever expected that they would be forbidden from walking in the common property, from swimming in the swimming pool, from going to the squash court. I mean, no one in their right mind, who bought a condo would believe that that day could come when, if you walk in the common property, the policeman is going to come up and give you a warning. It was so shocking for many, many of the residents. And the most difficult part was informing them and explaining to them why it is necessary to do this. Because in a mixed community, you have people from all over the world. And many of them from the Western world just didn't understand the lockdown. It's infringement on freedom. It's infringement on my freedom. I pay service charge. So why can't I do this? So that is the biggest challenge that I think that we faced. The fact that you had restriction on movement, that children couldn't go anywhere, they couldn't do all the normal things that they used to do. And I think keeping them informed was the most important thing that you can do, and making sure that you address their concerns, their worries, and those things. And the communication part was the most important thing to do.
Right. Were there like any memorable episodes or not so memorable that you are comfortable to share with us?
Well, my most memorable is I have one owner who insisted that not only do we take the temperature of the contractors and all that coming in, he wanted us to knock on the doors and take the temperature of every single resident in the condominium. I said, I can't do that. That's private. It's not allowed. He said, no. The PKKP has said you must do everything you can to prevent COVID. Said you must go around and you must knock on their door, and when they come through the guardhouse, you must take their temperature. I said, sorry, we can't do that. That's really taking it too far. You're gonna have a revolt if you do that. So unfortunately, you do have people who are very, very paranoid about the COVID-19.
Yeah, but is it better now? Is the paranoia easing up a bit, or has it gathered more steam?
Well, he wrote to PKKP and they didn't reply.
Okay. Okay, we shall leave it at that. Yeah. So what about your, on your end? Yeah. What was the experience like with the partial lockdown?
It was quite surprised that the whole world eventually got so obedient to this lockdown, which is unthinkable. That everybody stays in, don't go out throughout the whole world. It's quite and for our community here is that we have got quite a few expats staying here in the community. And I also feel that some of this confusion may be caused by overwhelming with news every day on coronavirus for the last 3 months. Yeah, and people get a bit confused on what they should do, they should not do, and who should they listen to. And the expats, we have this expat kind of saying that why can't we go swimming when they were a family of 3 or 4, whatever, Why can't we just take turn and go swimming? Why do we have to close down the entire swimming pool? And same issue applied to the gym. Why can't we just go to the gym with our own family and work out in the gym, and then we go out and sign out, and then somebody else goes in? And why can't the children be running around in their own community, since everybody is locked down? So everybody should be safe. Everybody should be free from coronavirus, since we are not going out, So you have all this kind of issue coming up that we have to really explain to them that, the seriousness of this thing, the effect it will have if somebody catch one, then the rest of the community will get infected, and then they're going to get total lockdown and all these things. So you really have to explain, because they come from an environment, they're obviously reading their news, right? Oh, back in the UK, they're not doing this. Back in the US, they're not doing this. Why should we be doing this here? So you have this overwhelming news that's being spread, obviously through the social media rapidly, and then you have they take their own view on all of these things, and so basically, like Chay said, we have to really communicate this carefully and explain to them why we're doing this, and we're not doing this on our own. We're doing it following some government directive, some SOP government set, and everybody is observing. I think the same thing like in the first week when the MCO happens, right? You see people going out jogging, right? Until the police motorbike comes along. Hey, why are you guys just jogging out here? And then they go back, right? Then they still jog the next day, right? Until they say, oh, we're going to fine you 1,000 ringgit, right? Then they stop. Yeah. Over the Dato.
Yeah.
Well, we've had, I didn't see very major issues, exactly the same problems what everyone else has commented on, to communicate to everybody why this is not going to open. I've had long discussions over the swimming pool having chlorine, and chlorine is it kills viruses, which is medically probably correct also. I'm not going to doubt that. But as an MC or as a GMB, I don't want to be the guy who's deciding on what should be the decision of MOH, right? Whether chlorine pool is okay or not. As long as they said no, no means no. So sorry, gentlemen, please stay at home. Don't come out. Well, people, I think initially, yes, it was a couple of days of discomfort, not realizing that we are going to be stuck for a long time. So, I'm fine. So I'm wearing my mask. I'm fine. I just go out. The funny thing is, the initial part when I used to go around and get myself tested with all this, at all places with thermometers, I've had places where I would probably have been frozen to death with 25 degrees centigrade temperature, sometimes 30 degrees. So I think that was the funny part, because I personally feel that don't do things just for doing it. Someone should really calibrate it, should check it, because if it's of use for everyone, it's a good thing. People get checked. They may not realize that they have a fever or whatever. We don't check ourselves at home every time. When we go out, people do check. So one way what we did in our condo was, even during the resident side, when people used to drive it, so we made it mandatory for the guards to check. And believe me, surprisingly, not a single resident complained. In fact, they were quite happy to do it like 2 times a day. If they drove by, they knew that the guard is going to stop and check. I think it's perfectly fine, because it helps you to understand you're fine. So yeah, those are things that went through.
Yeah. Were there anyone who refused to pay maintenance fees for the last 3 months because they say they could not access all the amenities? That why are you making me pay for them? Did you have that problem?
A lot
all 3 of you are laughing. All 3 of you are smiling. So yes, okay, yeah. Maybe just share with our viewers. Were there like people who demanded that they why are you making them pay?
Yeah, I think to be fair to people, they did. A lot of them did come back to say that why are we being charged for things that was not given to us? In short, gym was not working. The the swimming pool was not on, or for that matter, the toilets, all the common area toilets were closed. So all that, but I think while all that is fine, the fact remains that the rest of it was functioning overtime. Because if earlier you were not in your house for, say, 8 hours a day, you are now very well housed in your house for 24 hours a day. So you were actually making the system work overtime. So I don't think that you have a right to come and ask. And secondly, I don't think the Strata Management Act allows waiver on the maintenance fund. It's not within the powers of the management committee anyways. So if it's to be waived, you've got to go back to an AGM, get it approved, and do it. But thankfully, I would say, if out of, we've got 2,000 units over here, probably the number of people who came back to us were minimal in that sense, in percentages. So yeah, some of them did complain, some of them are still complaining, and whether we have to go to COB or whether we can file a suit or something like that. Well, within your rights to do so, but unfortunately, we are not in a position to help.
Yeah. So let's hear it from the legal person as the chairperson. Right? Did anybody dare come to you and say that, hey, I'm not going to pay?
No. I think we heard a lot of complaints, but at the end of the day, they all paid up.
They all did, yeah. Oh, good that they do. What about Kenneth?
I was very surprised that where I am here, we have not had a single issue raised on maintenance fee that they're not going to pay because of MCO. Not a single one. So I'm very surprised.
Oh,
Very good. Very
good for you. Good for you. Talking about this payment, sinking fund, there's actually one question on the management of the sinking fund. This person is asking, whether or not the management is compulsory. It is compulsory on the part of the management to display the account for scrutiny. It is, isn't it? I mean, it is there for scrutiny, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it's available for
scrutiny. Yeah. If it is not available for scrutiny, something is really
wrong.
Something's wrong.
Something is wrong, definitely wrong.
Yeah. But of course, then at the same time, you talk about sinking fund. There's always this question about when do you dip your fingers into the sinking fund? What is the right thing to do? What is the not the right thing to do, right? Like what Dato has pointed out earlier, do you keep a lot of money in the sinking fund? What does that mean? What are your views on that? When should one actually, dig into the sinking fund? Under what circumstances? As a chairman, yeah. What would you say?
I think it's provided for on what you can spend on in the sinking fund is provided for in the Strata Management Act, repainting major projects like that. So those are the things that you would need to get approval to utilize the sinking fund. But much of the discretion lies with the management committee, and I think to some extent, management committee has too much power. Sorry, I may be putting my hand up and getting shot at this. But I think Strata Management Act actually doesn't put any limits on the management committee's power. Only if the AGM or EGM imposes a limitation on the management committee do you have any limitation. And most times, most AGMs and AGM, most owners don't impose limitations like that. But as developments get more and bigger, and there's more money in the pie, I think we need to actually put in some proper legal limitations on what the management committee can spend in terms of money. Because strictly speaking, there's nothing to stop them spending all the money in the sinking fund and in the maintenance fund, if they wanted to do it. So I think we need to think about that. Maybe you can put it at 25% of your sinking fund or whatever it is, put a figure. And if you want to spend more than that, then you should go back to the owners and ask them for permission to do so. It's not very costly affair to hold an EGM or AGM. Nowadays, you're not allowed to entertain people after the AGM. So it should be quite a straightforward thing to get approval. But it's always better to have owners know where their money is going rather than, because unfortunately sometimes, as we know, nobody wants to serve, and only certain people come up and serve. And there have been some occasions, I know, in some condos where all the sinking fund and management funds were dissipated, and many owners didn't even know where it went. So I think this is something I think authorities need to look at, to impose some kind of limitation on the powers of the management committee to spend the money of the management corporation.
That is actually very interesting indeed. Because well, we're talking about a lot of money, right? I mean, some buildings, they actually have quite a bit of money in the sinking fund, right? Yeah, but shouldn't all these decisions be approved by the AGM or the EGM first? No, right now that's not the case.
Well, there's nothing which says that you have to go.
Legally,
right.
I does not say that in as per the Act itself, but I think it's always prudence to any major expenditure. You plan it properly, you get your quotations, and you propose it in the AGM to say this is what we plan to do. Because see, sinking fund generally is for upgrading purposes. I know there's a lot of confusion. A lot of times some people try to mix the maintenance fund and the sinking fund without clarity. They can use those two heads interchangeably. But that's not the right way to do it. The right way is that it is there for upgradation, it is there for painting, it is there for refurbishment to the extent that you are enhancing your property, you're bringing in something. Yes, you can use your sinking fund. Now, prudence is again, if it's a major expense, you are planning to change the entire facade of a building, yeah, you should go back to your all the owners to say this is what we plan to do. But do you need to do? Legally speaking, I think I agree with Chetty. You're not legally required to do that.
Yeah, that's very interesting because in fact, even KBKT, right? They actually had mentioned before that they are actually looking at reviewing the Strata Management Act. But that has been said like for 2 years now, I think, it's still under consideration. So good point indeed. Yes, JT.
I remember a case where I'm owner of a condominium and I was not on the committee, but when I went to one of the AGMs, there was a they had changed a particular part of the building, It was a very well designed part, but the committee in their own prudence decided, oh, we don't like this, we change it to something else, right? So they spent a lot of money on that without anybody's knowledge. And once it was ready, believe me, it looks crap even today because we didn't want to spend again. So it's there. So I had no choice but to then move a resolution in the AGM to put a cap that if you're going to spend beyond this money, you better come back to all of us owners. Because if this committee is not able to understand that what is wasteful expenditure and what is a requirement, then I think it's important to put a cap. So we put a cap.
Yeah.
Right.
That's absolutely the right thing to do. I think it's a responsibility of any JMB to ensure that sinking fund only to be used on major projects. For example, the entire road is not in good condition, you want to change the whole thing, or certain part of the are going to collapse or whatever, you use the major fund to do this, and also the improvement on the properties, and anything substantial like this that is going to happen, it should always be for the AGM to make sure that residents understood where you're going to spend this huge sum of money on, and that is before you spend it.
Right. Gentlemen, there's a question on Airbnb, because we know that Airbnb is an issue with some projects, not all projects. But what about, in your respective buildings, your committees, what is the stand, what are your views on Airbnb?
I think first Chetty can tell what's the current legal position on that, because there have been few condos who have actually gone right until, I think, Court of Appeal already on that matter.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think all the condos that I sit on forbid Airbnb. They bring it to the AGM, they make sure it gets passed, the resolution is passed, and then all owners are supposed to observe it, because they realize that it really compromises the security of, and especially high-end condos. The last thing they want is to compromise on the security. So
Right.
all the condos that I sit on anyway, they have all forbidden Airbnb.
Yeah. Kenneth, I don't think there's any Airbnb in the mansions, right?
No way. I don't.
Yeah, the only unwelcome visitors are the monkeys, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. But Dato, what are your views? I mean, yes, the Apex Court has made a ruling a few days ago.
Oh, did they?
Giving a decision, yes. It has gone up to Apex. Yeah. So I think they've made it quite clear as well. But then again, there's something that puzzles me. I have not quite figured it out, because I know for a fact that there are some buildings in KL, without naming what they are and exactly where they are. Actually, the owners have gotten together and allow on an official basis Airbnb to operate. I think that one of the reasons being is, I'm just guessing here, is because maybe they have not been able to get tenants, and all these are investors. Yeah. So yeah, that's a little bit tricky.
In certain areas, for sure, like in Johor, Airbnb is pretty popular. Okay, the reason for it is that before the COVID, a lot of the crowd used to come from Singapore, and they need the units only for 2 nights at the most, or maybe 1 night, right? So long-term stay is not so popular. So some of the condominiums have actually allowed that to happen, because there is no rental business. So you have to then again probably balance it based on that area and how you're going to manage it. But principally, I think I agree with Chetty to say it's an issue of security. So on many condominiums have actually taken that point of view and passed resolutions in AGMs and then decided to go against Airbnb. And we do keep a watch. The guards exactly know. And now with technology coming in more, you can actually even identify if your car, which is registered with your unit, is the same car coming or is a different car coming again and again. You will already know that there's something fishy going on. Somebody has given the cards to somebody else. So as we improve on technology, I think it's getting easier to catch if someone is doing that kind of Airbnb stuff in your condominium.
Right. Because now, this modern days new norm, we are not just talking about Airbnb, we are also talking about co-housing, and there's a lot of new things that are coming up now. Yeah, but of course, if you look at it from this...
The Management Act is going to keep pace with all this, believe me.
There's a question, a follow-up question to what you've mentioned about, putting a cap on the expenditure, the approval of expenditure by the management committee.
Yes.
This person said, what if you put a cap at AGM? That's what we talked about, right? What if the committee were to just break it up into a few contracts? What's going to happen?
I saw that comment. Well, if someone is really hell-bent on breaking the law, how are you going to catch him, right? But
that's true.
If it is a huge expense, say like it's a 200,000 item, right? And you break it up into smaller items of 50,000 and times 4 and or 100 times 2 and manage it. If it's a big expense, I'm sure the people around the condominium will realize there's a big expense done. And you're still bound for scrutiny. Yeah, I mean, when you look at next year's audit, you surely are in your rights to ask the committee, excuse me, where is the 200,000 coming from? What did go up? Oh, you cannot say I spent, this was what we did, and it was for 200,000, but to escape everybody, we decided to do it into small You will get caught. I mean, but people have to be really scrutinizing, and I think owners also have a big role to play here. Please come to the AGMs, please scrutinize the committees who are sitting there, and let it not be the usual affairs as we see in many condominiums that you have like 10, 12 regular people, and out of which 9 get elected to the committee, 3 sit out. So it becomes a challenge every year.
Look at the bright side. You don't have to stay up to 2 a.m. You'll finish quite quickly. JD, there's one question. This one is actually more for you, I think. We talk about Airbnb, right? What about service apartment? Because for all intents and purposes, these are commercial property. So that being the case, can one actually stop activities such as Airbnb?
Wow, that one I'm afraid I can't answer. I've never invested in a service apartment. I don't think it's I won't say it on the air, but I don't think it's a good idea unless it's a fantastic location. So I've never looked into service apartments at all. So I really can't tell you. Maybe one of the other gentlemen who may have invested in one can tell you, but I've never invested in a service apartment.
Yeah. So maybe back to Dato, because, Solaris to Tamas. Yeah. So, we see a mix of residential and commercial property.
Yeah.
Do you have such problem, Airbnb, in the property with commercial title?
With commercial title, I think the maximum commercial title we have here is generally offices.
I see.
So
okay.
It won't go under Airbnb. And what we also have is a lot of shop lot units, which are again either F&B, retail, and back to offices. So
not
Airbnb,
the service apartment type. Yeah.
No. But service apartments, yes. If people are owning service apartments and they have rented it out to the service apartment manager as such, who's supposed job to try to rent out those on a regular basis, on a daily basis, weekly basis. In that, to get an Airbnb to complement that perspective, I think, it could be very much possible. But again, you have actually given away your unit to a property manager who's supposed to take care of your rentals for you. So whether you want to try and again enter into that role again, I don't know. I don't think it's correct.
Yeah. So it's actually open to interpretation, right? All these short-term stays, right? Yeah. Actually, gentlemen, do you agree with me that there's actually a lot of sacrifices that actually go into your taking the helmship of your respective MCs, right? Not just in terms of time. Maybe you lose a couple of friends, I don't know, or you make more friends. Yeah. So ultimately, what is it that keeps you guys going? What is it? JD, 2002 until now?
What keeps me? I think basically you have to enjoy it. Or you won't carry on doing it. You have to enjoy the challenge. You have to enjoy property. You must enjoy maintaining property, making sure it's the best, and trying to do the best you can for the properties that you sit on as a committee member. I think if you really don't enjoy it, then I think you shouldn't be doing it, because it becomes a chore after that, especially when you have to deal with difficult owners and difficult people. But I think it's the challenge. It's essentially the challenge to make sure that you get the best out of the property you are sitting on, I think, and do it to the best of your ability for everybody.
So do you see at the end of the rainbow, your pot of gold, in the sense that you see enhanced value for the property?
I think at the end of the day, it must be, like I say, capital appreciation for the owners, good rentals for the investors, and well-maintained property so that everybody is happy. But of course, I don't think if you have everybody happy, you're doing something wrong. It's got to be everybody slightly unhappy, then you're doing it right.
You can't keep everybody happy in this business.
Absolutely.
Right. Kenneth?
I think you really has to, like Chay say, I agree that you have to enjoy it, and you have the challenge to say something is not right, that you can make a difference to make it use either the best material, the best workmanship, the best technology to improve on it. And I also strongly believe sometimes the residents should participate in some of these things, because we're not all expertise in certain things that we do, and sometimes within the some of the owners has their own expertise, and sometimes if they can come forward to contribute their expertise is much appreciated, and it will also help to do things easier, because you sometimes cannot solely rely on vendors coming to look at something that is faulty, whether they are bluffing you or looking at your property, that you're expensive property, so I'm going to give you a higher quote. Whether something is wrong is actually wrong, or they're just replacing it for the sake of replacing it. And some of the residents, I'm sure, staying in all these places has got their own expertise, and sometimes it's good for them to come forward and keep everybody in sync and make sure that the property runs well. I give you an example. I used to rent a not high end, but a medium size, medium property, medium price property. And in there were a few people who were very good, very professional. They were working in high-end labs to do testing for high quality air, high quality water. They used to take waters from the swimming pool and go to their own lab and analyze it, and they'll produce a report and shove it in the building management space and say, look, this is not good enough. Because I've just done the analysis from my lab, and that keep them on their toe, make sure that the swimming pools are properly chlorinated, properly maintained, the pumps are all working. Because they every now and then they will just go to the swimming pool and take some water and go to their lab and do their own analysis and show them the report. And I think these are some of the things that is good, because it benefits the whole community and also keeps the property management in place and on their toes. That's my view.
Also, not very easy being a property manager, huh?
No, not easy at all.
Dato, do you have anything to add? Yeah.
Well, what basically the question what you said was what keeps us going in this business.
Yeah.
I mean, I've already 13, 14 years being part of this strata management business. I think for me personally, what started was that if I can contribute to my environment, see, condominium is people generally say I'm inside my house, it's fine. I keep my house well maintained, it's beautiful. I spend $1 million inside the house. Outside is not my business. I take a different view. If you stay in a landed property, you also make sure that just outside your house, you have a small garden, you maintain it, you go right until the road, you maintain it, you make sure the surroundings are clean. They're well maintained, right? Because you want to have a presentable area when people come to your house. So why are you not interested to maintain that extra bit just outside your house? Why does it become somebody else's job? So as long as I'm able to contribute to my environment, to my community, I think I'll keep going, because I think that's what is probably inside me, to keep contributing, so that if I can help in any way towards my community, towards the people around me, why not?
Oh, wonderful.
I think you must feel good when you come back, right? When you come back from work or whatever, you drive in, right? You see that, oh, this place are all done up properly, nicely, So you feel good about it, huh? Otherwise, you cannot keep us going doing this kind of work, because we know. Yeah.
Just one last question, because we're running short of time. If you were to invest in your next property, very soon, I'm sure, because you're all very suave investors of property, right? What would be the attributes of this building that would appeal to you in terms of the management aspect of it? With all the insights that you have gleaned, right, during the terms that you have served on MNCs, right? What are the things that matters to you? I mean, beyond the look, the design, and of course, besides things like, the location, mantra, and so on and so forth, in terms of the management of the building, the quality and sustainable management of the building, what would be important to you? Anyone to start?
Well, for me,
Go ahead, Dato.
The number one criteria, other than the building looks and the location and other aspects, I think it's the developer himself. Who is the developer? What is the developer's philosophy? In the sense, are they really giving you value for money, or are they just building a building and handing it over to you? Will that building really last the next 10, 20 years? Or after 10 years, we as owners are going to be spending $10 million to repair all the pipes and everything. So it's a reputation of the developer, whether it's a long-term developer, it's a new developer, what are the values they stand for? Are they really creating a society living, or they are just, one time, one shop, one small plot, create something? So for me, I think that's equally important other than that. And the fact that we don't want in a situation as an investor that you invest in a building and it never gets completed. So you are stuck, which happens in a lot of medium and low end strata condominiums where the developers go bust and a lot of people end up paying money from their pockets. They're stuck with the banks have discharged loans, they have to pay loans, the building never gets completed. So you don't want all those hassles because ultimately we don't have time for all that. If you're investing, you invest into something which is going to give returns.
A trusted and responsible developer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Kenneth?
I think the developer, from the developer perspective, I think the developer need to pay a bit more attention in trying to attract investors to buy their property. They should really differentiate themselves in terms of what is it that they're building that makes it easy to maintain, low cost to run. The density obviously matters, right? And how I've never seen developer educate the buyers. Right? You go and buy property, right? You never see the property vet you as a buyer. They vet you because they think you have deep pockets and you have money to spend, right? But they don't vet you to say that, you are spending the money. You are only spending the money because you're looking for something that is sustainable, right? Whether it be a solar panel, the way you're handling the lighting, to save cost of electricity of running the places, the ease of maintenance if something breaks down, and all these aspects. I think all these aspects are not taken into account in terms of how they do the development and how they want to promote the property. When I was watching the best managed services property award, all the awards and so all the properties, it's very interesting to see that how they are doing the development and what is the developer commitment to the particular development when it's finished, and that's something we don't hear at all. So what's your view?
No, I mean, I totally agree. Apart from location, developer, and all that, maybe I'm getting old, but if I were to buy another property now, I would buy low rise, low density. Yeah, I would buy low rise, low density because the lifts don't cost much to maintain. Everything is within walking distance. You can even come up and down when things don't work. So I found low rise living in a low density condominium is the best thing you can do.
JD, that's my dream house. Unfortunately for me, it stays a dream.
Hang on. Not so sure.
After COVID, a lot of developers are going to really have to rethink all these issues of trying to put in 500 units in one block and put in 10,000 people inside one condominium. I think this is going to be the biggest challenge for developers going forward, because this you may end the pandemic, the people may get back to normalcy in a year's time and all that. But that doesn't mean something different may not happen. And while we are only concentrating on pandemic, how are you going to manage other disaster managements? In urban living, disaster management is going to become another key aspect. We are getting so crowded that if tomorrow you want to exit out of your area, if it's going to take 35 minutes or 40 minutes to get out of even 1 kilometer, you will be trapped. You have to really look at all those things. I think that's where things have to be very seriously.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Very, very good point. Yeah. Okay, before we call it a night, gentlemen, is there anything else that you want to add? Yeah, it has been really insightful for me. Yes. No, are we good?
I think developers should really from this pandemic, developers should really relook at all their strategies in how they build houses. I think maybe 20, 25, 30 years ago, Chai, is that people looking for property are looking for number of people per square meter or density of that place in relation. Now you are seeing that properties are going sky high, 30, 40 floors, with swimming pool on the second floor, but hardly any land for you to walk around the property itself. So I think they need to rethink, but definitely management of quality improvement in building, whether it be low rise or high rise, is important. That property developers should really focus on. That is my comment.
Yes, yeah, very good. Yeah, yeah. Yes, thank you, gentlemen. How time has flown, it's slightly more than 90 minutes since we started chatting. Thank you very much indeed for your time, for sharing with us your insights, and, for all the hard work that you guys are putting into your respective projects. You're not paid. Yes, you probably would have made an enemy here or there. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much. And of course, this discussion will be reported on the hprop.my on our website, and a special report will be published next Friday on our e-publication as well. Yes. Thank you again, gentlemen, and to our viewers. Stay on to find out if you have won anything in the last hour and a half. All you have to do is to just stay online, and the names will be pinned up on our Facebook Live comment section. And for the winners, do check your inboxes for instructions on the redemption of whatever that you have won. With that, gentlemen, thank you again. Hope to catch up soon. Kenneth will be over for Chamadak jackfruit duet, as I mentioned. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Stay safe. Again soon. Okay. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.